and welcome to another edition of E's Art Tips. Today I'm going to talk to you about shape versus form, line versus value. So today we're going to need our handy dandy pencils. You may notice that I've got a few different kinds of pencils today. I'm not working with like your regular 2B or your regular pencil that you would use in school. I've got a Palomino Blackwing. I've got my drafting pencil that has a 4B lead in it. I've got my architectural pencil that also has a 4B lead in it. I have to get these off of eBay or Amazon. And I have a new tool called an ebony pencil. All of these get a really nice, soft, buttery, dark value, and you'll see why that's important soon. I also have a nice metal pencil sharpener because all of these were pretty dull. So that's what we're going to talk today is line versus value and shape versus form. Now, what does that mean? Both of these have to do with levels of abstraction. Now, I'm going to put a link below my video to a Scott McCloud video where he talks about levels of abstraction, and that's based on ideas of realism to abstraction. So everybody's seen Mona Lisa, you know how real she looks. That's pretty hyper realism. On the other end, you have Charles Schulz's Snoopy or Charlie Brown. So what that is extreme ends of a value scale of abstraction. Neither one is wrong, neither one is bad. The key to being successful in art is figuring out where you fit. So let's start with shape versus form. So I'm going to draw an egg. That's an egg, but that's a shape. That is 2 dimensions on a 2-dimensional surface. If I want it to look like an egg, the form of an egg, I have to approach this differently. I might do a light version of it just to figure out where I'm going, but I'm immediately going to come in with value. So I'm going to immediately figure out where is my light direction, and I'm going to start shading it. And remember, I talked about in another video about light wrapping round objects kind of like water. So the darkest part of this shadow is actually coming in a little bit because it's actually, the light is going to bounce off the surface that it's sitting on. So the difference here is that the line is telling us the shape of an egg, and the value is telling us how that egg is looking in a 3-dimensional space. This is the trick that we're trying to do as artists to try to convince you of a 3-dimensional form in a 2-dimensional space. Now, you may recall that little exercise that I told you to do to practice your edges, where I told you to do a dark shape on a light ground and a light shape on a dark ground. This is where that comes into play, because dark on light is going to make the dark pop. Light on dark is going to make the light pop. So to make this egg that we're trying to convince you is actually a 3-dimensional egg pop off of this white paper, I'm actually going to come in and make the background dark. So I'm not dealing with the line of the egg, I'm dealing with what is not egg. So my husband and I, when we went on our honeymoon, we went to Africa, and we ended up adopting this term of when you think you saw something in the bushes, and it would end up being not a beast, and so everything became a not a beast. So negative space, you can think about it as not an egg. You can probably tell already how that egg is just starting to pop off the page because we've given it a value to pop off of. So here's the difference. There's nothing wrong with this. This can still be an egg. In fact, we can do a bunch of eggs. And we can make them Easter eggs. We can put little patterns on them. When I do my coloring pages, this is what I'm doing. I'm working purely with line. So they're both eggs, but this is now a cartoon egg, whereas this is a three-dimensional form. This is shape, this is form. So you've got to decide, what's your goal? What are you trying to do? Are you trying to come up with something abstract, maybe a coloring page, and therefore you're dealing with shape? Or are you trying to make something look hyper-realistic, where you're convincing your viewer that this is a real thing, and therefore you're working with form? There's a whole range of places to land in between this and this. So you've just got to figure out, where do you want to be? If you're a cartoonist, maybe you want to be over here. If you're, say, a fantasy illustrator and you want to do cards for Wizards of the Coast, maybe you want to be over here. And this is where line versus value comes in, because here we're talking about line quality. And I did a whole other video on line quality, which I hope you'll look at. I'll link to that below. And here you're dealing with value. This is going to make things move up and back in the visual plane. This is not. This is flat. That's okay. If that's the story you're wanting to tell, obviously you can see these have two very different moods. This has a much more lighthearted mood. This might be more about dialogue or interaction of characters. This is more about trying to suck you into an environment and make you believe that it's real. And that's what fantasy is taking things that can't be real and making you believe that they are. And that's the whole point of fantasy. So if this is what you want to do, then you're probably going to want to concentrate on learning things like form and value, perspective, shading, those types of things. If this is your direction, you're going to want to concentrate on line quality, shape. So when you're trying to figure out who you are as a creator, it really helps to figure out which side you're on or where in the between these you land, so that you can get really good at specializing in that particular spot, in that particular level of abstraction. I'm going to write that down. I'll give you one more example. Let's draw a face. I'm going to switch pencils so that you can see these in use a little bit. So if I'm going to draw a cartoon face, I might draw just a little head, a big ear, maybe a funny hat, little eyes, absolutely nothing wrong with that. We've got a little cartoon dude. But let's say I'm going to draw something really three-dimensional and I want you to believe that this is a real thing. I'm going to be a lot lighter with my line because the line's going to go away. And now I'm not dealing with line, I'm dealing with the shapes that the shadows make, like the upper lip. And if the light is coming from above, you got to think about the shape of a face has a lot of places that catch shadow. There's the underneath the brow, the underneath the nose, the underneath of the top lip, the underneath of the bottom lip, and the underneath of the chin. Shadow, 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 right? Again, I'm drawing this from a very strange angle for myself, so please forgive if this isn't that great, but hopefully it's getting the point across. So a lot of artists will think either in line or in value. One of my mentors at Hollins University, Ruth Sanderson, she's an amazing illustrator, she thinks in values. And when you look at her art, it's pretty obvious why. But if you think about somebody like Charles Schulz, he thinks in line, or he did think in line. So you can see the difference as to how that's going to come on your levels of abstraction, your levels of realism and believability. So that's a nice investment you might want to get into. So again, this is an ebony, this is an architectural with a 4B lead, this is a drafting pencil with a 4B lead, and my favorite go-to, the Palomino Blackwing. And of course, erasers, I'm not a snob when it comes to erasers. Whatever it takes to get to that end result, do it. And if you need to come in and erase to capture some of that light that you might have lost, maybe you put too much dark in some areas, use your eraser. I don't have a problem with that. They wouldn't put it at the other end if you did. They didn't mean for you to use it. It's all art. It's all good. Anyway, I hope this helps you. I hope that you can figure out where you lie as far as what your goals are and what maybe your innate skills are, and then start playing up on those. That will help take you to another level once you realize where you fall on this scale. So shape versus form, line versus value. I hope this has been helpful. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time on E's Art Tips.